Good evening and welcome to Tucker Carlson Tonight. Another big evening. Both Kamala Harris and former President Barack Obama speaking at the Democratic National Convention. Of course, Fox will have coverage of all of it. We're on day 3 of the convention. The question is, how's it going so far? Well, former Democratic candidate Marianne Williamson has been following it closely. She describes the experience as, quote, like binge watching a Marriott commercial. That's about right. Pretty unappetizing. Platitudes heaped upon cliches, smothered in a thick sauce of self-righteousness and stupidity. No normal person could eat what the DNC is serving this week. We tune in because it's our job. So far, the main excitement has been watching just how shamelessly they can lie. The goal appears to be complete reality inversion. Professional rich lady Michelle Obama told America that she was oppressed. The criminally negligent governor of New York bragged about how well he handled the coronavirus. And then Jeffrey Epstein's old pal Bill Clinton showed up to speak as the party's moral voice. There's been a low-grade thrill in watching all of this, we'll admit. At the very least, you've got to tip your hat to their audacity. They don't tell small lies in the Democratic Party. They go all the way. You catch them stealing your wallet, and they arrest you for theft. And then they give you a lecture about how crime doesn't pay. To longtime students of the liberal mind, none of this is new. The left long ago built an entire political party based on the Freudian principle of transference. They displaced their own sins onto you, thereby cleansing their consciences and allowing them to seize the moral high ground. It's a clever trick. But at this point, it's an old trick. We know how it's done. The public certainly seems to have figured it out. Last night, the Democrats' convention lost in the ratings to a variety show called America's Got Talent. A pair of jugglers from the Philippines, brothers wearing glow-in-the-dark headbands, did a yo-yo demonstration on stage. And that outrated Dr. Jill Biden by a lot. We could have told you that was going to happen. Only Nicole Wallace wants to not watch another speech by Dr. Jill Biden. And by the way, what kind of doctor is she? Some of us aren't feeling well. We never learned that answer either. What the Democrats should have done is put the rest of their proceedings on TV. That would get an audience. You might not know this, but most of the actual convention events take place during daytime hours. The networks don't cover them. You have no idea they ever happened. There's a reason for that, obviously. But what a loss for the viewing public. If you saw what they were saying during the day, you would never tune into primetime again. In fact, you might flee the country. For the last 3 days, we have watched all of it. In a moment, we'll show you what we found. We want to begin this evening by bringing you a moment of prayer that broke out at the convention on Monday. A pastor called Frederick Haynes took the microphone. As you listen to this, compare it to what you might hear in your own church.
You had the nerve to build a wall while at the same time you have in the harbor there in New York a Statue of Liberty saying, give me your tired, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free. Jesus will say, America, if you don't get your act together, you may well go to hell.
To hell! Vote for Biden, doomed sinners, or you're going to hell. Well, it is a pretty straightforward message. Was Jonathan Edwards ever clearer than that? Was Jerry Falwell? Despite what you may have heard, it is the Democratic Party that is the hotbed of religious extremism these days. Pastor Go-to-Hell Haynes, for example, is a fan of Minister Louis Farrakhan. These are men of faith, just not your faith. But religion is not the only institution the Democrats are reconfiguring at their convention. The Pledge of Allegiance could use an overhaul, too, they've decided, and they're giving it one. Watch the new version.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and for the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all, someday.
Someday. Right. Someday. This could be a good country someday if we're in charge. Otherwise, it's an awful place. Without us at the helm, America is terrible and not worth saving. You've heard this before. Michelle Obama once suggested it. The first time she was proud of her country was when her family got to run it. But that was nuanced by the standards of today. At the Democratic convention this week, a transgender rights activist called Linda LaBeja just came out and said it explicitly.
I've never felt American. I don't know the Pledge of Allegiance. Those are not my systems, the way that is not my president.
Those are not their systems. Donald Trump is not their president, meaning this is not their country as long as they dislike the guy in the White House. So it's all or nothing for them, and right now they're trending toward nothing, which is why they apparently turned over the DNC's stage directions to Colin Kaepernick. Watch.
Many of the videos and pictures you're about to see were recorded before COVID, which is why the kids are not social distancing. However, the audio was recorded over the past month. You may rise or kneel if you are able, per your preference.
You can kneel. So if you watch this stuff for long enough, and we have, it's pretty easy to forget that it's pretty fringy, actually. Look at the polls. Most people don't agree with this. Most Americans like their country. That's why they live here. And a lot of them display that affection by standing for the national anthem. It seems like a small thing, but it means quite a bit to people. Americans have died in battle to protect our national symbols. That is a talking point, yes, but it's not just a talking point. It really happened. But they don't know anything about that at the Democratic National Convention, and they don't think that your kids ought to know about it either. And that's why they've endorsed erasing American history.
May this moment in history manifest more monuments like these to replace the old ones that no one really cares to see anymore. May their emergence and long overdue establishment and existence remind everyone of our terrible, ugly, and hurtful Black world history.
So there are parts of history that no one cares to see anymore, so we're getting rid of it. Are you keeping track at home? If not, we're at Erase American History, Rewrite the Pledge of Allegiance, Mock and Degrade the National Anthem, Turn Christianity into a Political Weapon. They have been busy over there at the DNC. But there's more, because now it's time for some granular policy discussions, the details of how to run the country. Now, we've showed you in previous nights this week some of the DNC's platform. They want to get rid of a lot of the country's prisons, for example. They'd like to do away with bail for accused criminals. But that's just a start, just a little taste, a little appetizer before the main course. So for more, we're going to go to someone now called J. Mai. You should know that J. Mai's preferred pronouns are they, them. According to their biography at Wake Forest University, J. Mai is, quote, a Black Vietnamese transgender, non-binary, gender-transcendent mermaid queen king currently living out their ever-evolving truths in Winston-Salem, end quote. Got it? Okay, now listen to J. Mai.
Why can't folks imagine a world without the cops? Why can't folks imagine a world without prisons? Why can't people expand their imaginations to include community care, to include an abolitionist future? And I'm talking about like for real abolition, not just watered down DNC version of abolition. We're talking about abolishing the police. We're talking about abolishing ICE. We're talking about abolishing prisons.
Yeah, we're talking about abolishing the police, abolishing ICE, abolishing all prisons. We're imagining a world like that. We're bringing it to you. You're starting to get some sense why they're not putting this stuff on TV. Democrats and their faithful lackeys, the media, have been telling you for weeks that none of this is real. You're imagining it. Democrats don't really want to take the cops away and leave you defenseless. Yes, they are voting to take billions from police departments across the country. But that's not really defunding. It's redistributing. Not a big deal. Calm down. But now, J. Mai shows up and lets an entire animal shelter of cats out of the DNC's bag and lets you know that, yes, all your fears are true. We're doing exactly what you think we're doing. The gender-transcendent mermaid queen kings are here, and it's a whole new deal now. Get psyched. And be sure to warn your daughters. No more field hockey scholarships to Bowdoin for them. No, they're boys on the field. Democrats want biological men to compete with girls in sports. Most parents of girls think that's nuts because it is, and terrible for girls because, obviously. But at the Democratic National Convention, it's not even questioned. It's just business as usual. Watch transgender person Marissa Richmond explain.
We're going to have a panel looking at trans youth issues. We've been watching state legislatures, especially here in the South, targeting trans youth for trying to deny them access to health care, education, and even access to the right to play sports, although needless to say, the mishandling of the coronavirus by the current administration is affecting a lot of people's ability to play sports. But they've been particularly transphobic in schools.
Okay, so no more field hockey scholarships, and I'm sorry, your daughters are not going to make the soccer team. That's bad news. Most people could live with it if they had to. But once again, it's just the beginning. What if they abolished capitalism, too? Would you like some bread lines to go with that? How about some humiliation on the side? It's all on the menu. Listen to aspiring economist Ashley Nicole McCrae.
This future that we all want, that we're all trying to build, really is about the destruction of colonization, white supremacy, and capitalism. Of colonization, white supremacy, and capitalism.
The destruction of colonization, white supremacy, and capitalism. What does that mean exactly? We're not sure. We're not delegates to the DNC. But we're pretty certain it's going to be bad news for you. But not the end of the bad news. No, there's more. Elizabeth Warren showed up to speak at the Native American caucus on Tuesday. Seems pretty likely she's come to steal your horses.
Join us in fighting for Joe Biden and Kamala Harris and in supporting the Democrats so that we can all continue our work for Indian country.
It's just so great. Our work for Indian country. We kept waiting for Ralph Northam to show up at the DNC's African American panel wearing a hood. Maybe that's tomorrow. People online did love the Warren panel, by the way. Loved it. In fact, it probably would have outrated the Yo-Yo Brothers from the Philippines if they'd aired it at night. People at home flooded the DNC with suggestions for Chief Warren. Here's one. If Elizabeth Warren can speak at a Native American event, maybe Milli Vanilli can host the Grammy Awards. And that's not a bad idea, actually. But it hurt Elizabeth Warren's feelings, so the DNC shut down the chat room. What a shame. It bears repeating, by the way, that not all of this insanity was confined just to the daytime. Some of it bled into primetime as well. Sandy Cortez showed up to promise health care, college education, higher wages to illegal aliens. She did all of that in a 90-second speech. Pretty impressive. It was like a socialist Mad Libs competition. Here's part of it.
Thank you to everyone here today endeavoring towards a better, more just future for our country and our world. In fidelity and gratitude to a mass people's movement working to establish 21st century social, economic, and human rights, including guaranteed health care, higher education, living wages, and labor rights for all people in the United States. I hereby second the nomination of Senator Bernard Sanders of Vermont for President of the United States of America.
Let's put her in charge. Ooh, that's a good idea. Whoa. We should note that crazy as all of this was, and it was, none of it was too crazy for Joe Biden or Kamala Harris. Sandy Cortez called for giving government health insurance to foreign nationals, tens of millions of them. Jay Mai imagined a world without cops or prisons. Some lunatic in a clerical collar showed up and said Republicans are going to hell. Harris and Biden nodded along. It all seemed normal to them, because it is. Brett Baer is the host of Special Report. He joins us tonight. Brett, I got to ask you, since you are a newsman but also a TV man, veteran, the ratings last night, they don't tell the whole story, but they are kind of revealing. If your convention loses to America's Got Talent, no criticism of that show, but does it make you pause and wonder, like, does this have implications?
Well, I think so. I mean, the ratings are down, and this is a different year, obviously, but they're down about 40 to 50% in the network coverage. Overall, you know, you're roughly around 30%. The campaign says, the Biden campaign says they're seeing streaming numbers going up, but we haven't really seen all of that data. You know, you were talking about what goes on air, and it's very scripted. So far, it's been a lot about moderates, Republicans endorsing Joe Biden, how it's reaching across the aisle. But during the day, you're right to point out, there are a lot of things that happen. These caucus meetings, these delegate assembly meetings, and they're not on air, but they're online, and you can see them. And there are quite interesting things being said in all these meetings.
You can see them, you can't unsee them, which is part of the problem. I'm wondering, why are they streaming this stuff out to the public? I mean, clearly, they chose Biden in part because they wanted a moderate face on the party, but if you've got people calling for an end to capitalism, that doesn't suggest moderation. So why are they putting this out there?
Most people won't see that. I mean, your producers will dig it up and show it, but most people won't be streaming that. The numbers won't be that big across the country. It's part of the deal to reach out to the different groups. This is the Democratic Party platform. It is 92 pages long. You mentioned Governor Cuomo. His father, Mario Cuomo, former New York governor, said, "You campaign in poetry, but you govern in prose." translate that to mean you can put whatever you want in this platform.
Right.
It's symbolic. But when you get into governing, it's a whole different thing. The question this time is, if Democrats do get into power, how much push will there be from the left side of their party to govern in the poetry of what they're talking about in the caucus meetings and the assembly meetings?
It's impossible to know, but my sense is quite a vigorous push. That's looks like what's coming. Bret Baier, great to see you tonight. Thanks so much. And of course,
thanks,
to our viewers, Bret will be on special coverage tonight, as he has been all week, starting at 10 Eastern, worth watching. Kamala Harris is going to speak just shortly at the Democratic National Convention, which is extremely exciting for hedge fund managers and the anchors over at MSNBC. Here's a selection.
I thought it was coming, and it was incredibly exciting news when it came.
Just a remarkable moment.
She cares about women's issues. She cares about equality deep within her soul.
And she does have a kind of a charisma. I don't want to use the word celebrity, but in political terms, she does.
People wanted to be around her. There was a charisma, a fascination, for lack of a better word, Anderson, a bit of celebrity surrounding Kamala Harris.
Donald Trump lives in fear of prosecutors. And today, Donald Trump got a new prosecutor on his case, senator and candidate for vice president of the United States, Kamala Harris.
She cares about equality deep within her soul. Someone actually just said that on TV. And by the way, for years, a lot of us have resisted mandatory IQ tests for cable news anchors. But it's clearly time. Well, in 2008, Sarah Palin was the vice presidential nominee. She did not get coverage like that, so we thought it might be interesting to get her reaction to all of this. Sarah Palin joins us tonight. Governor, thanks so much for coming on. Appreciate it. What do you make of this?
Well, first, I was so relieved to hear you laugh during your monologue, because sometimes I feel like, am I the only one laughing at what's going on there in the Democrats' convention? I kind of switch between being really nauseated and then just laughing. These folks are just so out of touch with just these normal, average Americans, all of us out here working hard to, protect our freedoms and rooting for smaller, smarter government and equal opportunity. All those things that America is all about, and it seems like they're all opposite of that.
Yeah, it does seem that way. But what's interesting to me is how little coverage any of it gets. And we don't have special powers. We just assigned one of our less fortunate producers the task of watching all of this stuff. It doesn't seem like anybody in any other channel even notices, and I wonder if that's on purpose.
Yeah, of course it's on purpose. Remember these Democrat candidates, they're kind of treated as delicate pieces of china, whereas someone like me and other, kind of hardcore common sense constitutional conservatives, we're just more like the bull in the china shop. And I think that those who are just really, really close philosophically, and a lot of times personally even, those politicians with those in the media is going to just treat them with kid gloves and treat them like those delicate pieces of china. And yeah, it's complete opposite treatment when it comes to the different philosophies and politics.
It does seem that way. And looking back, is there anything you could have done to get the kind of coverage that Kamala Harris is getting now? That, I don't know, you care about equality deep within your soul, that you're a rock star, that you're a celebrity, that you're the Dalai Lama reincarnated. Could you have done anything to get that kind of coverage?
I would not have prostituted myself in terms of changing any of my positions in order to garner better press. For instance, I'm all about all of our freedoms, including the Second Amendment. And yeah. I would not, for instance, say, mandatory gun confiscation, which is what the Democrats are rooting for and pulling for. I would never have gone there in order to get that good coverage. And yeah, Tucker, I would have gotten a lot better coverage had I compromised my convictions, had I decided that I was just going to go with the flow in order to get that uniparty liberal coverage that would have been so much better.
Yeah. Just say men can get pregnant and all this can be. I just have to end on this because I can't resist. So one of the consultants you dealt with in 2008 when you joined the McCain campaign was a man called Steve Schmidt. He's now endorsed Joe Biden. Are you surprised? What do you make of that? Since you know him, I don't want to single him out or anything, but I just have to ask.
Oh, go ahead and single him out. He's a piece of work. So is Nicole Wallace and these other yahoos who are actually running the McCain-Palin campaign. They are the ones who, a couple of them didn't even vote for the ticket. They jumped ship early in terms of their actual enthusiasm for Republicans being elected that year in 2008. And that's evidenced now by what they're doing today. You know, they're Democrats. They're very, very liberal. They are part of that uniparty. And to think that they were the ones rolling out, for instance, my candidacy and setting up the interviews and doing there was a lot of sabotaging going on there, especially at the end of the game there. But look where they are today. I mean, Steve Schmidt, oh my goodness, MSNBC contributor, and Nicole Wallace and these folks. They're wolves in sheep's clothing, and there's been huge exposure. So, you know, those of us who were kind of victims of what they're capable of, it's kind of vindication for us because it's like, see, told you so. They were never on our team to start with.
Yeah. In the end, people get the peers they deserve, I think. Governor Palin, thank you so much for coming on tonight. I appreciate it.
You bet.
So we've talked about the Wuhan coronavirus, pretty much nonstop for 6 months now. What's interesting is a brand new survey shows that almost nobody in the country knows much about it. Key facts about it. Why is that? It's interesting. Plus, we'll have more coverage of the Democratic National Convention. That's all next.
A breaking story from the east end of Long Island. The Coast Guard is telling us that a 747 crashed into the Atlantic.
It is flight number 800.
It's been more than 6 months since the coronavirus arrived here from China. At this point, we know a lot about the disease. We know how it spreads. We know who is most likely to die from it, most importantly. No topic in recent memory has been studied more carefully than this one. If only knew this much about how to keep marriages together, for example, or how to keep our kids off drugs, we'd be happy. But we know a lot about this. So you'd think this one topic would be one on which Americans would be deeply knowledgeable, the Wuhan coronavirus. But no, just the opposite is true. Most of us seem to know very little about it. Why is that? Well, because we've been lied to. A new study illustrates the effects of the relentless disinformation campaign about coronavirus. The investment firm Franklin Templeton looked at what the public believes about the virus. They found that on average, Americans believe that young people, people 44 and younger, account for about a third of the coronavirus deaths. That's completely wrong. In fact, the truth isn't even close to that. The actual number is under 3%. Not a third, under 3%. Very few young people die from the virus, but strangely, young people seem totally unaware of this. On average, they overstate the risk of death from the coronavirus by a factor of 50. Now you know why politicians have been able to shut down the schools. Students are terrified. They shouldn't be terrified. Overwhelmingly, this virus is a threat to middle-aged and elderly people with pre-existing health problems. Adults over the age of 55 account for more than 90% of coronavirus deaths, more than 90%. The numbers are out there, yet somehow the public doesn't know this. Why don't they know this? You know why. Lying, motivated by politics. The more CNN you watch, the less you know about science. That's not speculation. The study found that self-described Democrats, quote, tend to mistakenly overstate the risk of death from COVID-19 for younger people much more than Republicans. This was not a partisan survey. This was a survey done by an investment firm to guide their investments. Now, for the Biden campaign and their allies in Silicon Valley, all of this is great news. It means their propaganda is working. Their message is clear and has been from day one. COVID-19 is an imminent mortal threat to everyone in America, young and old, healthy and sick. A mandatory vaccine is our only hope. Until that arrives, you must do exactly what we say. That's their position. It's not science, it is propaganda. But you're not allowed to know that, so they censor anyone who strays from that script, including practicing physicians and scientists and researchers, and they scold the rest of us until we shut up. They have to do this, by the way, because if you saw the actual numbers and drew logical conclusions from them, you might question the lockdowns. And those lockdowns have made a senile man the frontrunner. Well, the Kamala Harris of today bears almost no resemblance to the Kamala Harris of just a few years ago. You want to see the video we found before you watch her convention speech tonight, because it's fascinating. Up next.
Pete Talbot here.
Harris is speaking tonight at the Democratic National Convention. She's running for president, technically vice president, but yeah. We haven't seen her remarks just yet. They haven't sent us an early copy. But we're pretty sure, going out on a limb here, that they will sound nothing like the Kamala Harris of 2013. Watch this.
We run around with these signs, build more schools, less jails. Build more schools, less jails. And we walk around everywhere. Build more schools. We protest. Build more schools, less jails. Put money into education, not prisons. There's a fundamental problem with that approach, in my opinion. And it's this. I agree with that conceptually. But you have not addressed the reason I have 3 padlocks on my front door. There should be serious and severe and swift consequence to crime.
Serious and severe consequences for crime? Trigger warning, that sounds racist, okay? It does. That's a tool of oppression. And Kamala Harris appears to have come to that conclusion. Here she is speaking this summer. See if you can spot the difference.
Part of what has been upside down in policing policy in America is that we have confused having safe communities with hiring more cops on the street.
So if you're a business owner or just an American who lives in the city is afraid of getting killed in a riot or having your store burned down, Kamala Harris wants you to shut up and understand racial justice.
And so the people protesting on the street are protesting, understanding that we have yet to fulfill that promise of equal justice under the law.
Kamala Harris has changed a lot. How? Why? Which version's better? Dana Perino is in Washington tonight for our convention coverage with the Washington Monument and the White House banner. Dana, it's great to see you tonight. Thank you so much. So the old Kamala Harris of 2013, I think, is maybe more in line with most Americans. But I wonder if we've solved for the reason she's got 3 padlocks on her front door. In other words, a tape like that is going to, seems to me, strike a lot of people as like pretty sensible compared to what she's saying now.
And see, and that's an interesting point because I think it was on your show, and I know that we talked about it on the 5. There was the poll that I think it was Pew poll or maybe it was Gallup that said that Black Americans actually want more police than less police and fewer police in their communities because they know that security means that then they can do all the other things that they want to do, which is to get good education, start businesses, raise happy families. I think that, however, if people want to attack Harris from this perspective, that she was a really tough prosecutor and now she's pretending that she wasn't, I almost think that for people that may be undecided or suburban women might say, that sounds kind of reasonable to me, that sounds good. I think Republicans might want to, if they want to attack her, it might be more that she's obviously turned radical left, whatever they're going to say. But what will be interesting tonight is that if you think, Tucker, if AOC is the future of the party and Joe Biden is the past, then Kamala Harris is the present right now. And they're caught between the ideology transforming and transitioning and evolving between where she was even in 2011 in the tape that you just showed and where she is today.
Huh. So I just really quick, there are reports tonight that Barack Obama is just going to unleash in a way that former presidents don't ever on the current president. Do you think that's true? What would that mean? Have you ever seen that happen?
Well, it's not something that the guy that I work for, George W. Bush, has not done that. But Bill Clinton did really try to go after Mitt Romney, I think, if you'll remember that, in 2012. And it was pretty skillful, actually, at doing so. The other thing that Barack Obama apparently is going to talk about a lot tonight is he's going to accuse Republicans of voter suppression efforts. And he's going to tell young people that they absolutely must resist this. They have to get around it. They have to get out there and vote. So I think you will expect to see that. And I imagine you'll be talking about it on your show tomorrow night.
Yeah, because it's Alabama 1956. It always is. Dana Perino, great to see you.
Thanks. Have a good night.
Speaking of Mitt Romney, is he speaking tonight or is that tomorrow night? We're going to check with our sources. When is Mitt Romney speaking to the DNC? We'll tell you. America hasn't gotten into any big wars in a while. In fact, this administration is the first in more than 40 years not to get us into a new war. But there's a big effort underway to change that. More war. We'll tell you who's doing it. We'll be right back.
Take my picture.
Day 2 of the Democratic National Convention begins tonight. Barack Obama will be speaking. Hillary Clinton, Kamala Harris are monitoring that, of course. Sometimes it's easy to miss the things that don't happen. We're in an unusual period in American history where we're living under an administration that has not started a new war. That hasn't happened in more than 40 years. No one ever says that. Some people are upset about it. They would like more war, a lot more war. If you were watching the proceedings of the Democratic National Convention last night, you heard speaker after speaker urging America's young people to get out there and get killed in some foreign country they can't find on a map. You saw the Democratic nominee from several years ago, John Kerry, urge voters to vote Democrat so we could have more wars. Watch.
The only thing exceptional about the incoherent Trump foreign policy is that it has made our nation more isolated than ever before. On June 6, 1944, young Americans gave their lives on the beaches of Normandy to liberate the world from tyranny. Out of the ashes of that war, we made peace and rebuilt the world. That was and remains exceptional. It is the opposite of everything Donald Trump stands for. This moment is a fight for the security of America and the world. Only Joe Biden can make America lead like America again.
Yeah. But here's the good news. America can still rebuild the world. America's young people can still give their lives in foreign countries. How? Well, to explain how, the DNC produced this slick video to get everyone excited about a new quagmire in Syria.
Our military had a policy to maintain our presence in Syria. We actually came to the aid of the Kurds against ISIS, and we helped stop the advance. President Trump told us to simply abandon the Kurds. It's shameful.
Joe Biden will be strong against dictators.
I've heard him on the phone with some pretty tough characters. You know, you talk about Joe Biden's empathy, his decency, but Joe Biden is tough as nails, and everybody knows it.
He will do the right thing, no matter the political cost.
I've served for 2 Republican presidents and 1 Democratic president. I have seen the Trump administration make decisions without any thought, without any preparation, that have massive life and death consequences.
Yeah. All right. We need to send your kids to Syria right away because Iran is way scarier than our unemployment rate right now. No, really, take our word for it. By the way, in the video, you might have seen Marie Yovanovitch. She was one of the Democrats' impeachment witnesses. In case you had any doubts about what impeachment was all about, you just got a big clue from the DNC. Joining us tonight, we're happy to have a man from the left, Jimmy Dore, who's going to take a lot of heat for coming on the show, but we're happy to have him anyways, the host of the Jimmy Dore Show. And he joins us now. Jimmy, thanks so much for coming on. So,
well,
go ahead.
Thanks for having me.
So last night, I mean, I'm sure there are lots of things in the Democratic platform you agree with, but the emphasis last night on just pure neoconservatism, just flat out, we're going to get us more involved in Syria. Where did this come from exactly?
Well, the Democratic Party is a pro-war party. I mean, that was like a war rally at their convention. I was waiting for a football game to break out. You know, one thing John Kerry is right about is that Trump's foreign policy is kind of incoherent, except Joe Biden's, his entire career has been nothing but imperialism. Joe Biden not only voted for the Iraq war, he shamed Democrats who weren't supporting it. He was a vocal supporter of it. How about when he became the vice president, they took us from 2 wars to 7. He did Libya. Then he wanted to do Syria. We're still in Yemen. So these guys are nothing but saber-rattling, warmongering maniacs. And it's really, again, we have one party in this country, Tucker. It's the military-industrial party, complex party. And that's what we're seeing. Even when Trump tried to take us, he kind of was threatening to take us out of Afghanistan, threatening to take us out of Syria. The Democrats and Biden, they jumped in to stop it. So we have one party, and it's a war party. And it's just amazing that this is the stuff. They got Colin Powell to endorse him, a bona fide war criminal who lied us into the Iraq war. The one piece of policy, it seemed, that everybody agreed on was that the Iraq war was a good idea. That's what it seems like. Those are the people that they have come on to endorse Joe Biden, the architects of the Iraq war. And you don't think this is a failed party?
Yeah. The one person who wasn't invited, you'll notice, was Tulsi Gabbard this week. By the way, you got all the neocons in the Democratic Party. Good luck. Have a great time with them. They're the best. Jimmy Dore, thank you so much for coming on tonight. I hope it's worth the abuse you're going to take. Appreciate it.
I'm going to take it.
Yes, you are. Well, Barack Obama about to speak tonight at the Democratic National Convention. What does he really think of Joe Biden? Interesting question, actually. We'll talk to a reporter who has covered that very topic next.